Gather around the fireplace, gather around the fireplace. I've got on my gray cozy sweater, so you know what that means. It's time for Real Talk Sunday. It's cold outside, but it's going to be warm in here, so let's get into it. Today we're going to be discussing the Pan-African hustle and why the B1 mentality is dangerous to Black people. I know you are probably wondering, how could this be? This is something that is positive and that is geared towards giving Black Americans an identity and all of these positive attributes. But typically, that's not what actually happens. And so I have been around these streets for a long time, and I have seen many of these movements come and go. And just to set the stage and provide some context, what we are discussing today are in fact the movements. We are not discussing individuals. So please understand that this is not geared towards a specific person or a specific leader of a movement. This is about the concept. We are critical thinkers here, so let's continue to raise our thinking levels above individuals, and let's move to the higher level of talking about concepts. That's my disclaimer. Let's get into it. So I have seen many of these movements come and go. I have seen the Moors, I have seen the 5%ers, I have seen the repatriation movements, I have seen the Hebrew Israelites. I have seen a lot of these movements crop up. They get really hot for a period of time and then they fizzle out. And they all end the same way. And by ending the same way, I mean they produce no actual results. So that is what I have observed, and I'm a pretty observant person, so I'm going to just pull out a few attributes that I have noticed in these movements over the years. So number one, these movements are usually started and led by a male who was not able to make it in general society. That's harsh, and I hate to be so blunt, I hate to be so direct about it, but it's the truth. And if we're going to evolve and mature in how we discuss these things, we're going to have to start unpacking some of these uncomfortable truths. So that is at the core what is happening. These movements are being led by men who typically have little to no education, little to no success or achievement in mainstream society, and they are looking for validation somewhere else. Women in these movements are actually on the sidelines. It's very rare that you see a woman being pushed as the leader of these fringe movements. Women are usually on the sidelines, they're the cheerleaders. Go, Mr. Pan-African, go! You can do it! You can fight! Yeah! I'll have your babies with nowhere to live and nowhere to stay. Yeah! And that's where you see women showing up. They are used as cheerleaders, as props, as sexual objects, and really nothing more. And so we'll get into more of that a little bit later, but let's return to the original point. So these males have no wins and no status in mainstream society. And essentially what they're doing is they are saying, oh, society has rejected me? Well, I'm going to reject it. So now I'm going to create a utopia that is centered around some object that you cannot define, that you cannot measure, and I'm going to bring people into it. And sometimes that object can be a book, such as the Bible, the Quran, other religious texts, the Book of the Dead from ancient Egypt, you see them centering their philosophy around an object that cannot talk, cannot speak, cannot prove or disprove what they are saying. And that is part of the hustle. You can't argue with a book. You can't debate with a book. You can't ask the book questions. And so as long as they put that object in front of you, you are forever chasing the utopia. You are forever chasing the ideology. We see this show up even with the repatriation movements. These movements have turned a landmass, i.e. Africa, into a god to be worshipped, when in reality, Africa is a beautiful land like any other land. Africa has to be taken care of. The countries within it have to be tended to for it to produce results. Africa itself is not a god. It is the people within the land that will make Africa successful or not successful. So you have to really watch out when you are hearing these males direct you to an object that is not going to be able to answer any questions. Number two, another attribute that I have noticed in these movements is that these movements are all about money. And we all know money makes the world go round, right? Money makes things happen. But their whole ideology is predicated on getting your money. So you will see them in their home, in their country, wherever they choose to be, in their hut, or they are out in South America, or wherever they are, and they are telling you, leave the system, don't work that job, don't go into mainstream society, right on. But can you please send me part of your paycheck that you get from the mainstream society? How does that work? So they are telling you that you need to exit society and that you need to join their utopia and that you need to get on their plan. But in the meantime, please give them the dollars that you get from working your corporate job 40 hours a week. Please give them the dollars that you get from your tax breaks from the government. Please give them the dollars that you get from any assistance programs that you use. Do you see where I'm going with this? They are very much still living off of the system, but they are living off of it through you. They are living off of it through your donations. They are living off of it through your hard-earned dollars. And the worst variation that I have seen of this personally is when you have a Pan-African male. This is just so, it just gets me. A Pan-African male who has mated with a female and he cannot take care of the children. So he tells her to get on government assistance to feed their household while he sits on the internet all day making videos about how he's going to bring the government down. It's just wrong on so many levels. And one more attribute I'm going to discuss about the Pan-African hustle is the women factor, the female factor. A lot of these men use these movements so that they can have easy sexual access to lots of women with no repercussions. I have personally seen up close and in real life in these various movements, men go through tens and dozens of women in the same house, in the same congregation. They all have babies by one leader, and they are all sharing him. This is a hustle, and it never leads to prosperity. Ask yourself, if we've had so many movements going back to the 1900s, and we could even go back to the 1800s with the Back to Africa movement. So we've had Back to Africa movement, we've had the Moorish movement, we've had the Nation of Islam movement, we've had so many in between. Why are Black Americans still floundering in this country? Why has the wealth of Black Americans not increased substantially over the last 50 to 75 years? It's because these are hustles. These folks see that our people are hungry for knowledge, and that's a good thing. Our people are hungry for direction, but unfortunately, you have charlatans that will come in and fill in the gap. And you don't realize you've been had until you've donated your money and you don't see a return, until you've invested your money but no actual buildings have been built, and until you show up pregnant with his baby and he is on the run, not paying child support, not married to you, and he's got another woman in the same movement pregnant. So for me personally, I have checked out of all of those movements. I don't need a movement to be a good human being. I don't need a movement to live my life. I don't need a movement to help advance my people. And that's all I have to say about that. So I want to hear what you think. Have you been a part of these movements? Are you currently a part of these movements? Are my observations on point, or have you noticed something different? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks.